This is actually a ridiculous cut of beef. A chalk steak.
This guy needs no introduction here. You all know him already. Mr. Aron Pobereskin. We're on our way right now to get a little beef at Paisano's. What are you looking for when you're shopping here?
I'm looking for what will result in textural diversity. That looks odd. I don't know, grilling it, yes. 3 different muscle groups, hard to really, rein them all in.
But not luxurious?
Yeah, look at all that fat. I mean, that's chuck. $7.99 a pound, I'd say that's a deal.
We both have our own relationship with Paisano's. It's a beloved butcher shop, isn't it?
When they give you the wholesale pricing, it's beloved. I mean, who you can convince there to give you the wholesale pricing is a fraught process.
Account with them.
Yeah, you got the account. I guess I had your account.
You gotta use.
Or I had Bollier's account.
Even when you go in, though, it's still hard. It's still hard to. We'll get Eric on the show eventually.
Yeah.
It's still hard to get the wholesale price unless you're actually getting large quantities.
Yeah,
so during the pandemic,
there was like a line: 11 pounds brisket, not enough. 21 pounds, ideal.
Yeah. During the pandemic, I was buying 40 to 80 pounds of chicken, and a lot of people, how are you storing that? At that time in my apartment building, the neighbor across the hall and the person above me left the city, as many people did in New York, and so they gave me their keys, so I had fridges to just store shit.
You were in a unique situation.
Very. To be able to continue doing what I do and kind of rebuild,
by means of having extra refrigeration space, which is rare, but also a car.
I bought a car during the pandemic. It was not the beginning.
Well,
so for a while,
some of us were on a road bike.
Was a better. It's good for your health.
You throw a 21-pound brisket in there, it makes it a little less aerodynamic.
It's like holding a baby. You could be okay. And we turned that brisket into a baby, actually.
Tough motherfuckers.
We out here.
Don't tell Leo, because
the brisket was the first baby.
The first baby was There's a great picture of Emma.
On the refrigeration subject, I think with all the stuff I do and all the events I do, and you've been in restaurants for years and private chefing for a while, refrigeration is always the number one problem I'm dealing with. How am I going to store this and how am I going to make it last? It's always my biggest fear.
You know what has unfortunately no place in the home kitchen that needs to have a place in the home kitchen? Ice.
Ice. I was sick of certain things going bad, so I've gotten really, really analytical about it. I bought a few wireless temperature gauges.
Yeah.
I have one in the bottom row, the middle row, and the top row. You would not believe how much.
My man here's been, where were you? Around San Diego?
Oh, was it? Yeah. Oh, well, yeah.
Around San Diego, texting me, the top shelf of the fridge right now is really perfect for the herbs, but the bottom shelf of the fridge is posing some risk to the herbs.
I was gone for 4 days. I got to come back and know that my shit is still there.
Fridge probes.
I still got to know it's
operated remotely.
We'll just park right here. This is perfect.
Wait till you get on that, humidity detection grind.
It's got it. It's got humidity top. Yeah. I remember. You want to know something crazy? You guys will not believe it as avid Thai followers here. I have had holy basil in the fridge for 2 weeks, and it's still good. It's about its last swim, and a lot of things happen. When you buy stuff, it's someone handles it wrong, it's wet, they put it in the refrigeration, they take it out. So you have to start with a good product.
Yeah.
So I had a good product, but still, the reason it's been able to last so long is because it's been storing between 39 and 45 degrees in my fridge,
which I think is right, but also
supposed to be. And I picked it too, by the way. You had to pick.
Okay,
yeah,
like
first.
Not in a freaking glass jar with water.
Not in
a wet paper towel in a bag.
All these things are all over the internet with gurus. I'm not gonna name any names. But people,
we're not gonna name any names, but a couple. You start to figure out who we're talking about.
Hey, we're not naming anyone. Everyone has their own ways to store herbs. Aron can cook everything. He's years of experience. I mean, what was your first place that you worked in?
I tried getting a job at a diner. I tried getting a job at a steakhouse, local New American restaurant in Deerfield, Illinois. Everyone told me to fuck off.
Why? Because you're
At 15, they're like, oh, you're too young.
What got you?
They're like, you've never done this before. Like, no shit, I've never done it before. Like,
Someone has to give you a chance.
can I just say, like, we do things every day we've never done before until we've done them, and then we get pretty good at them most of the time. 9 out of 10 times it works out.
Mm-hmm. If you have passion and you actually work, you have work ethic. I mean, what got you interested to even go to these restaurants? Were you cooking?
Well, my mom's like, you want to be, I was like 15. She's like, what do you want to do with your life? I'm like, I want to be a chef. She goes, it's not really secure. She's like, I went to University of Michigan and then got a graduate degree at NYU in international business. That's secure. I'm like, I don't want to work in an office.
She's right, but you know what else is not secure? All of that path nowadays, because people go to those schools and they just have so much debt. That's not secure either at this point.
She saw being a chef like me being like my dad, photographer. Tough. Very different parents. One's got it all figured out, follows her mind. I mean, there's a lot of heart there, but my dad is like artist. I was like, I want to be a chef. She said, well, you better get a job, prove that you can do it. It's like, all right, I'll get a job. And the first 3 attempts in the suburbs didn't work out. I was like, fuck this shit. I wrote to Charlie Trotter, and I wrote to Grant Achatz at Alinea, and I wrote to Tim Graham at True.
You sent him an email? Or?
I sent emails, and Homaro Cantu at Moto.
And who responded? Like, you did end up working
at Charlie Trotter's. I got a response from Della Gossett, the pastry chef, on behalf of the executive chef Matthias Merges, who invited me in for a week over my spring break, and they fed me the entire menu in the kitchen my second night, which was incredible.
Was that overwhelming, like, to eat all that, or were you just like so excited that you're like, I have to just like put it all down? There's a lot of food.
I mean, it was incredible. It's like the entire grand tasting, or whatever they call it, tasting menu and vegetarian menu, because they did that in 2009, which at the time was startling. Charlie Trotter did a lot of startling things that like the French Laundry gets credit for. So it's like European dining, tasting menus, seasonal cooking, sourcing from 300 different small farms and producers, bringing in products from Japan and Asia, pairing with wines in a European style, having a large cellar. I was there one week, and later on, maybe like, or that was April 2009, around Christmas, I was there for like another week. And then but they didn't have room for me, or for whatever reason didn't work out for the summer. I wrote to Grant Achatz, who was like, you want to work here, great, like come in for 2 16-hour stages. I had to look up, I didn't know what stage meant. And when I got there, everyone's like, so are you stage? I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't look it up until later.
Yeah.
He's like, come in, 2 16-hour shifts on your weekend. Let's see how it goes. It's mutually beneficial. We'll write you a schedule. While I was emailing him, I was aware that he was writing emails post-service. So to get his attention, to make sure I didn't miss him, I was setting an alarm for 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I was writing. I was checking. I was responding in those hours post-service before he went to bed.
So this is strategy.
There was strategy.
Just to get in these places. You were so eager.
And I was like,
strategy. It wasn't just like, oh, I hope I can like get this. Like I
mean, as much strategy as 15-year-old can have. I mean, I lied. I was like, I get great grades at school. False. But I was like, I'm on the stage crew. I'm in the jazz band.
Were you?
I was playing upright bass. Not very well. You don't want to hear me play bass. I met this guy. We called him Chef Danmark. Dan something from Denmark. And actually in Dansk, in Danish, it's Danmark, it's not Denmark. Anyway, guy was like, heard about Noma? I'm like, the fuck's Noma? It's like number 3 in the world. That year, no one had heard of it.
Yeah.
I started writing emails to Renee, a couple in Dansk, which didn't work out, and then in English, and they wrote me back. Victor Bogman wrote me back. And the next summer I was in Denmark.
Was that a great experience, or was that just like...
Oh, incredible. Except they didn't like it as much as Alinea.
Yeah.
They could all tell. And many of them resented me for that. Even if you're the best in the world and someone else doesn't think you're the best, that's me.
So you go from all of that to what we're about to cook, which is actually good tasting food. Not some bullshit food.
Well, there's a history. We're gonna cook something.
I'm just kidding.
We're gonna cook something. I won't declare an absolute, but that's fairly Mexican.
Yeah.
Grilled beef marinated in adobo.
Well, I think it would be fun to show this today, because I always see, I love Mexican cooking, and you're so passionate about it. There's so many parallels between Thai cooking. It's like the way things are roasted off, the way things
pastes. You make a paste. You treat every, like, so many ingredients you're dealing with. Each one of them is treated individually. Then they're combined, and then that's just a starting point.
Now it becomes a new ingredient, but it's not, the recipe's not done. It's like when you're making a curry, you do all this work.
My favorite thing we joke about.
Yeah.
Mole is just, chocolate sauce with some chili.
It is chili sauce. Just like massaman curry is just a smoothie.
Mole can have 5 ingredients, can have 30 ingredients. The most minimal with which is chocolate. But then they're all prepared, they're all ground into a paste, it's fried, maybe with aromatics until it's reduced into a thicker paste.
Mm-hmm.
That's the base of a sauce or a soup or something. It's a base. It's a new ingredient. We're going to make an adobo, a chili puree type marinade. Spices, some fruit, some onions, some garlic, chile guajillo, fruity, mild heat, earthy red chili. I'm removing the seeds because they're bitter, not really because it has anything to do with heat. You can do this after toasting and soaking, but I think that's a little bit of a pain. Got a nice thick wall. It looks kind of like fruit leather. It's not totally dry. And this is what you want. You want to pick chiles that are dried, but still resemble, something that was alive.
Like a nice fruit roll-up.
Like a nice fruit. And really, this is like, if you could feel this, it's tacky. Just like a fruit roll-up. It has that texture. It has that look. Also has that pectin.
What's the pectin going to do for us?
It takes control of water. It slows its motion. These chiles, of which we're only going to use 6, will yield, quite a bit of finished adobo. Costeño. It's a smaller, hotter chili than a guajillo. In my mind, it's not as fruity, but more savory. And of course, hot. So we're going for a few different things. The guajillos are a great base, mild heat, fruity, kind of like raspberry. This is a mulatto. It's kind of raisiny.
And so the guajillo, they're kind of giving you the fruit and body, and like they're giving you a strong red color. They're like the main primary red color here.
Yeah, they're going to be a beautiful red color. You can kind of see the translucent quality of it. That color starts to come out. Let me see if there's another one here. As light passes through, can you see that? Yeah, light passes through it, and it really betrays its true color, which will come out when we apply heat. When you apply heat, it actually forces out air bubbles. The air bubbles are obstructing the color of this chile. So when those are forced out, it's going to become redder, it's going to become deeper. Same thing when you cook a green vegetable, spinach becomes greener. It's not actually become greener. The green is there. Chlorophyll is there. All these little air bubbles are trapped, or water is trapped. And when that's expelled, all you have left is the beautiful color. For a Mexican preparation, a piece of beef, which doesn't make immediate sense to any American. And we were lucky to find a chuck steak. Chuck is the shoulder of the cow. You can see the blade here. You can see some different muscle groups, some tendons, some fat, some sinew. There's a lot of diversity happening here. Diversity in the type of muscle, the tightness, the density, or the looseness, the openness of its fibers.
What do you think about the fat?
What I take from Leo's words is he's happy trying mango, banana, avocado, rice, but he sees jasmine rice, you would say? Yes. But do you see beef in your future?
I think beef fat in the congee soon.
Beef fat in the congee soon, absolutely. Do you concur? Let me ask him in his own language. Yeah. Doing a light seasoning. We'll get a lot of salt in other places later. I want to get this on top of the beef before the marinade so that it penetrates. It's not separated by the marinade. It's actually in there. It's actually seasoning the beef internally, osmosis or whatever.
People call that a dry brine.
Dry brine's an interesting term. There's another word, cure, that comes to mind. Same thing.
Excuse me. You being loud?
Into the mic? Where's the mic? Right here. Into the mic, please. Leo demonstrating. We could use the oven. But we have a wok, which I think he's trying to emphasize. You could do this, but we could grill. In agreement. We're aligned. We are dialed. We're going to grill. I have the base components of an adobo paste, onions and garlic. I don't need to say much about. Tomatillos, acidic, tangy, pulpy. This will give a lot of body to the chili puree, and then some spices, cinnamon, cumin, black pepper, all pretty ubiquitous for this. Okay, we're going for color, but we're also going for cooked. So it's important that, these get turned somewhat frequently. Garlic is in its skin to protect it and also lend some flavor as that toast. I try and start with what's going to take the longest. onions, garlic, tomatillo. The vegetables will take the longest. Turning them, getting them to cook all the way through with just a heat source at the bottom. It's not an oven where you've got heat from all sides. Later, we'll go to the chiles and then finally the spices because they're going to cook. You know, you can see some of the garlic has shed its skin and it'll color a little more quickly, so I'll watch it more carefully. I'm going to remind myself just to let it cook. You don't want to be one of these pan shakers. You just want to let it cook. And I'm mostly going to stand here.
Just trust.
Just like this, trust the process. Trust the heat is right. Got the heat right. The blistering's good. But I'll start to turn them now. We want this sort of blistering everywhere. So it's okay to move these around a bit. The garlic clove is cooked. There's some black. But what's really important is that it's become pliable. It's soft. It's not raw. We can keep that softening by leaving it in the skin. Intentionally darkening, intentionally burning foods. It's a very Mexican thing, really.
Very Thai as well.
Yeah. Talk about, like, is color an indicator of doneness or flavor? In this case, it certainly is. The darker spots, that translates to bitterness. I don't want the whole tomatillo to be black. I want some bitterness, not total bitterness. The army green visually is telling me that that is cooked. It's not raw. It's not going to be as acidic and green tasting. So kind of a range of colors you'll see here is where we're getting some nice balance, some bitterness, some cooked development of flavor. You know, still a little bit raw. I'll keep going a touch here. Similar to the tomatillo, we want some dark spots. We want some bitterness. We also want to cook because it will become sweeter. It's a pretty tough spice. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it in the soaking water with the chiles. And you can see the chiles now, which we toasted just to the first wisps of smoke and deepening of color. See how red that is? Have really become soft. I'll demonstrate with the flesh. You know, you could even pull it away from the skin. We want that skin. Okay, we'll do the black pepper next and then the cumin. Even before I fill my pepper grinder at home, I toast it.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah, otherwise you'd have something that's stale sitting in a jar. You need the volatile oils coming to the surface and engaged a little bit. That's it. That's done. A 2-ounce ladle has an optimally shaped bowl that will never come into contact with the blade. So you can use this to push things down as you blend. Let me show you. Fairly smooth paste. You know, there's some grain. We are blending whole spices in here. We're blending tortillas in here. But it's all homogeneous now. It's a little loose from the water. I'll cook that water out, fry it out until it's as thick, suitable as a marinade. We'll then heavily season it with salt, with vinegar, with sugar. A severe amount of lard. Or manteca. I'm also keeping this a little bit tame, but really what we would do is I would have you ready with the pot lid. This would be really smoking hot. I'd empty the puree into it. It would bubble, as you're seeing now. When it's done, it won't flow like this. It'll be stiff. In this case, I would say it's okay to be a pan shaker because you want it. Yeah, you don't want it sticking. It's like fairly clean. Every ingredient that's in here has components of flavor that are water soluble that come out in water and others that come out in fat. So even like Indian cooking, beyond using fat just to transfer heat, just to get water out quickly, we're using fat to bleed those flavors from the spices, especially. This is where it's becoming the paste that we want, or it's not. You know, it's like brownie batter now. That's what we want. We want little chili brownie batter. It's tight. Holds its walls. Holds a peak.
That'd be cool analogy.
The paste is really tightened up. Before it was loose. Now it can kind of hold a wall. It's not spreading out. This is the right time to infuse it with fresh oregano flowers while it's hot. Season it with salt and sugar and vinegar. Cool it down, and while that's happening, we'll light the grill. I'm not going for grill marks. I'm going for even coloration over time. I might flip it a few times.
So you don't preheat it too much, because that'll...
No, if I wanted to preheat it, I would do this. And it might be a good idea for 2 minutes. Keep the heat in.
Sometimes I've found if you light the charcoal and go too long, like when you put the meat on, it's like instant
Right.
char marks, which people think is good.
I think our feeling is you want the heat to come from the charcoal,
Mhm.
not from the grate. But you want the grate to be hot enough that
Doesn't stick.
it's not going to stick.
What do you think? Is that correct?
Is that a nod?
Oh.
I'm going to turn it a few times now. Like, we got good color. Now it's about... My bad. You don't want that. I don't think it's the end of the world. I think there's a nostalgic quality about it, like your dad. It's a masculine thing to barbecue, but most men don't know anything about barbecuing. They think flare-ups are a good thing. Nonetheless, when you're a kid and your dad has something flare up and makes a big deal about it, makes you think that's awesome. When you taste it, you think that's awesome. And as an adult, like, I try to avoid it, but it's okay. We will get more color here, but right now it's not about that. The reason I'm flipping it a lot is so the heat keeps distributing. I'm not hammering it on one side. In the end, it's a more even cook. A little more color. Just a touch. It's rested, so we're not hammering it. Don't want to hammer the beef. Go for another touch-up. I like to take it off periodically, put it back on. If you run a mile at a sprint, imagine how your hamstring's going to feel. But you run a quarter mile, you rest, you stretch. Run a quarter mile, you rest, you stretch. This is a muscle too. Or a few different muscles. Approach it in a couple sections. I hear your son calling for beef in the background. You can see actually a really nice cook on this. We didn't take the temperature. How nice that is. And so the grain is switching.
Which way is it there?
Towards me. So I'm going to break this down into more manageable pieces. That's to show you that it's nice. But really what we want is to chop. Some pieces have more fat, some pieces have less fat. I'm going to pull out another muscle here. That's a little more gristle. Nicely marinated, nicely grilled. Salsa arriera, which is just, in this case, serranos, cilantro, and garlic. A little salad. Taco. I call it taco salad. Cilantro and onion. That's it. There's not even any lime juice here because this is fairly well balanced.
The moment of truth.
That's good.
Well,
Jesus.